All right. I was considering doing this at the start of this year, at the end of last year, and I was busy doing other things, so it just passed. I've had time to think about all the books that I've read the last year. This isn't all of them. The ones that are here are the ones from fiction genres that are kind of, I have a small child that I read to as well. Haven't entered those books here. A lot of these are rereads. Some of them, like I have some Harry Potter on here. I reread those with my oldest, and we're on the last one. So I've put them here. I've left out my history books, books that also just aren't fiction and other things. These aren't in order in any way. I'll try to kind of pick and choose. I'll try to go kind of quick. We have the top shelf books. And these are not books that came out in 2022, but ones that I read or reread. And I'll kind of try to go through quickly. And hopefully there's some that you pick up yourself. It was a great year for reading. Now I have George Orwell's Animal Farm first. And let me look. So there's Top Shelf, Wow, Enjoyable. And then the last two, I'm missing something. Sometimes when you read a book, it's kind of subjective on the book you just read before it. Maybe other things are going on in your life, good or bad, that just affects how you're reading something. And so that happens. And I do have a couple books where I might have just not been in the right state for it. George Orwell's, this was a reread. I always love it. I always get blown away by it. Really short. What is it? Only like 60 pages or less. It's super small. Everyone should read it. I'm going to put that in Wow. Now, I have this First Law series. This one is the most kind of gritty and graphic of the things I read. I generally don't go to that kind of stuff, but I read the first couple chapters and I was kind of hooked, so I stuck with it. I don't think I'll read his other stuff. It's if you have some sensitivity to things that are profane and stuff, it's just kind of beyond what I usually go for. But so it's not really for me, that kind of stuff. But man, the story was flippin' amazing, and the character work in it really was amazing. So I am going to put this up here as enjoyable, but if you have sensitivity to that, it was a little bit too much for me. I'm going to pick and choose, trying to get all these Harry Potters up here. Let's see. I've been reading this with my oldest, and so I didn't think I would enjoy it, but she wanted to read it. I mean, I knew I'd enjoy it. I read them ages ago. I've seen the movies. And it's surprising as you go through and think that the movies are kind of being true to the canon, I guess you could say. In a lot of cases, they really aren't. There's some amazing story arcs that happen both within the books and out of the books that are just not resolved in the movies. And there's so many interesting things that happen. On a whole, it's been really, really, really fun to see these stories through her eyes. We're almost at the end here. We're in the last book. We're actually in the last little bit. Last night, she lost one of her favorite little characters and cried almost until midnight. So that was on me for maybe reading it past 9, and I should have known that she wouldn't have liked that. So just in general, I'm going to put them all into enjoyable. I think they're really great. I'm going to pop Prisoner of Azkaban up. That was the first one. There's a scene near the end involving a shack that blew my daughter's mind. And it's just kind of the first really great chapter, I think, in the books. People have their gripes about them. There are some plot hole things, but I think they're really, really well done. Goblet of Fire as well in there. The Order of the Phoenix is going to be the first one that I put into top shelf. It's the only one from the old Harry Potter books that I think goes here for me. And when I first read it in high school, when it just came out, I was busy doing other things, had other interests, and so I didn't quite care as much. But as an adult, I think if you're going to want to go back and read them, you can read all of them. But I think you could just go with your memory or watch the movies for the first four. And the fifth book, I think, is the best one, and where it really ramps up the tension. And then the last couple books as well were great as well. But I'm not finished the last one. I'm going to put Half-Blood Prince in WoW, but it's been enjoyable. Childhood's End. I have a couple Arthur C. Clarke ones. The other one is Rendezvous with Rama. Here it is. Now, I really love Rendezvous with Rama. I'm going to put that right at the top as well. There's some science fiction that is very kind of space opera, loud, big set pieces, big ideas, lots of jargon and things. And then there's some that it kind of reminds me of the initial Alien, where it's very quiet. You kind of get that idea of like the blinking computer screen, very quiet before something happens. And this isn't like Alien. It's what it is. There's this object way out in space that they find that isn't a natural object, and they go and they investigate it, this crew. And a lot of the book, more than big set pieces and things regarding lots of action and stuff, you almost close the book and just start to imagine what they're seeing. It's very visual in there is dialogue, there are characters, but the intrigue is in what they are seeing. And I think it's awesome. Awesome. It was so fun. It was my first time reading that. I will definitely read it again. And I recommend it to a lot of people. Childhood's End. I know a lot of people love this even more. I thought it was enjoyable. But in a way, I'm kind of missing something with that one. Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This guy is I think he was a fantasy writer first, and then he moved over into some science fiction. And this one was his first. Children of Time. I have the next two because I loved this one. And it's kind of a Planet of the Apes sort of story. Not on Earth, but connected to Earth civilization and stuff, but away from Earth. And it is not apes. It has something to do with kind of the advancement of a different creature. I would suggest just going right into it if that sounds interesting, without going into too many reviews, because I think it would be really cool to go into it not knowing what it was. Death's End. All right, so this is the Three Body Problem trilogy, and this one is very, it's kind of controversial, I think, because of the author. I think there's some views that he has that people have got their feathers ruffled a little bit. I haven't really looked into that. Also, some of his writing is very odd. It's not really so much about the characters, but this big situation that is happening. You're not going to get these big story arcs with all these different characters. Sometimes a character will just be gone, and then you won't hear from them anymore. And it really is just more about this situation. Think in this first book, them sending out signals and asking if anyone's out there, and then getting a type of response. By the end of the series, it's very technical and kind of lost me a little bit. But I really, really enjoyed the first book, and I loved the second book. I loved the Dark Forest. Now, the Dark Forest, it's kind of just built in, there's not different chapters. It just kind of goes and goes and goes and goes and goes until you're done a section. So if that would bother you, then maybe keep away from it. But it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. Um, and then Death's End lost me a little bit, but I still thought it was great. Dracula, I'll always just love Dracula. That's a reread for me that I'll be rereading here and there. Frankenstein is another one that I put in the top shelf. That one has also inspired some of my own writing that I like to do on the side. Kind of got me thinking about my own kind of fiction that I've been trying to put together over the last year, but I'm not very good at keeping up with it. And I've had to kind of push back a little bit because, or dial it back a little bit because I have other things going on and I get really hyper-focused when I start writing. I'm going to put this one down. There's a bunch of Brandon Sanderson books. Empire of Silence from the Sun Eater series. It's a series of 5. I just recently finished this one. I really liked it. I thought I would like it more. And I am reading the second one right now, and it is picking up a little bit more. I'm very hopeful for it, but it didn't blow me away. This first one, I know a lot of people, this is their very favorite sci-fi, and I think by the end it will grow more on me. But as of yet, I really enjoyed it though. I really enjoyed it, but it did take me a while to get through because it just wasn't hooking me all the way through. Now, I have a whole bunch that are rereads from Lois Lowry. She wrote The Giver right here. This is one of my very favorite books, and most people don't know that it is also a series. There's 4 of them. The first one, if you remember that, it kind of just ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger where you wonder, how's it, what's going to happen with these guys? How's it, are they okay? And these 4 books, The Giver, Gathering Blue, Messenger, and Sun, all go together. Now, they aren't just picking up where they left off from the other ones, but these are separate stories that kind of exist within the same sort of world and have some fantastical kind of dystopian elements that are a little bit different in each one. And I really love how they connect. I love The Giver, and I love Gathering Blue, the second one. And then really like Messenger and really like Sun. And that's one that I'll just keep rereading that every 5 years or so. Number the Stars, another one from hers I hadn't read. It's won lots of awards. It was centered around this girl at the Holocaust. So it's a group of Jews. I think it's in Denmark trying to cross into Sweden and things like that. I can't recall exactly. When you read a whole bunch of stuff, things start to kind of mesh together. But really like it. Let me get a couple more. The Man Who Fell to Earth. Really, really, really liked it. Really liked it. I know it has a series. This is another one where it kind of has some intrigue around this main character. I never have watched the different shows and movies or TV series of it, but I'm really intrigued by this main character, this frail, interesting, brilliant character that people start to kind of have their suspicions about. Very, very cool. Let me get the first of Brandon Sanderson out here. So I've read a bunch of his this year to generally very positive response. The first one I read was just Mistborn: The Final Empire. Really liked it. Thought it was really a lot of fun. And as I go into this tier list, know that I'm kind of keeping them in order, but it doesn't matter to me. If it's a WoW, I'm not going to order them within the WoW. Really liked it. In general, with Brandon Sanderson books, for me, I'll always at least like it to this extent. Meaning, he always bats pretty high with me for what I've read. But I haven't been blown away by all of them quite, because I'm more of a context guy. I'm more of a characters guy, and he does have great characters, but I feel like he leans on the action a lot. And I got kind of sick of the magic system in the Mistborn books. I was more interested in some of the other stuff that was happening in Well of Ascension and in Hero of Ages, not with the people who have that main magic system. It was another magic system that actually intrigued me more with another character. And that's why I put the next two books at the top. Still thought the first one was great. I would recommend that series to people maybe entering fantasy. Really, really great. Oh, but this was my favorite series, probably of the year. I binged this in about a month. These 4 books here, The Faithful and the Fallen. Have you ever had books that have ripped your heart out? I know reading Harry Potter with my daughter, there's been a couple times where she's just been heartbroken. And sometimes books do that. And that's, if you can manage that in a positive way and kind of keep the reader engaged, you got something great. And this whole series just goes at a lightning pace. It is a literal, I mean, every book is a page turner, but it does that thing that Da Vinci Code did where every chapter, chapters can be 3 pages, 3 to 7 pages. And so you're always thinking, I'll just do one more little chapter. And I have the next ones ready to go. I bought the remaining books. But once I finished Valor, I thought, well, I'm just going to buy the rest. This was my favorite series of the year, probably. And I loved Malice. People usually kind of feel like it just gets better as it goes. And I agree in part that that was the case. But I really liked the entrance of the book. I thought it was so amazing. And there were times where I was just sitting reading it audibly, needing to close the book because I knew that just in the next page, my favorite characters were going to have terrible things done to them, and that a lot of them would be taken away. He does that throughout. Just broke my heart so many times, and I can't wait to go back. Murderbot, All Systems Red. I thought this was going to be for me. Everyone seems to love this main Murderbot character who's kind of an android type. Or is he full robot? He or she. Very small books. I thought I'd love it, so I just bought all 4. I'm so mad that I did that because this is just not for me. It's supposed to be humorous, and a lot of people love it, and I'm glad they do, but it just didn't leap off the page for me. I just didn't enjoy it. Of Mice and Men, another reread. Read this in high school. Still was enjoyable. Whatever. Once Upon a Broken Heart. Now, I made a video about this. This one is a YA novel. It has vampires. I kind of read it as a little bit of a joke for my channel. And it has love triangles with vampires. I don't know if Twilight is like that, but I assume that it has a lot of the same stuff. Of course, vampires have this stupid, like, uh, romantic element to it that I don't get, because, you know, when I think of vampires, I think of Dracula, and I think of that power and stuff like that. Now in YA novels, it's this other thing that whatever. Um, but if they like that, then they like that. I thought it was actually a pretty fun book. I finished it and I thought, well, I'll see where it goes next. And I've had the next one in my hand a few times at the bookstore and just thought, it's not time. But I thought it was fun. Thought it was fun. Now, my favorite book of the year, I think, was probably Project Hail Mary. And it is a science fiction book. Don't go to the reviews if you think you would like to read it. I can give you a very small synopsis that won't spoil it. It starts with this guy, wakes up, has amnesia, doesn't know where he is, and at least at the start, it's kind of figuring out who he is, figuring out why he's there, and it's just this really amazing story. I've recommended it to a few people. All of them that I have just loved it. I could almost recommend it to anyone. I can't wait to read that again. I think it's being picked up as a movie, maybe with Ryan Gosling. I think last time I checked, it's the same writer of The Martian, another great book, and really, really awesome. And you can get it on paperback now. I think it used to just be hardcover. Now I reread The Hobbit. I've read it so much that some of the charm has worn off, but still loved it. Lord of the Rings was great. I read The Silmarillion, which I guess I could put it into I'm missing something, but it was really enjoyable. I like that style of writing. Now, The Silmarillion, I wouldn't be able to tell you what it was about. It's one of those things where it kind of goes in one ear and out the other because there's just so many different characters and things happening. Just it kind of reads like the Bible in some ways, where it's just, it's kind of the far history of this world that I'm not an expert on. So it was kind of in one ear and out the other. But while it's in while you're reading it, it was enjoyable. I really liked it. And I did read one of the Dresden Files, and I'm gonna put it on Not For Me. Really interesting though, but maybe just content wise, it just doesn't. It's just not my kind of thing. But it is a urban fantasy that's very easy, light reading, kind of a noir fantasy. Like imagine this guy kind of like Gandalf, but in an urban kind of situation, working with the police force and whatnot. He'd be called in to help them out with some of the paranormal kind of crimes, that sort of thing. He was kind of interesting, but I don't think I'm going to keep going with the series, considering it's like 20 books long or whatever it is. All right. The Count of Monte Cristo. Probably the second favorite book of the year. This one has been on my radar for a long time. I hadn't seen the BBC version of it or the other TV versions or movies, and I tell people it's a huge book. It's over 1,000 pages, and so that'll turn a lot of people off. If you can get through the first 230 or so, I think you'll know if you like it right away. It's very different from the shows or from the movie. I've only seen the one, and I had to almost turn it off because they just weren't doing justice to this amazing book. Same person who wrote The Three Musketeers, I believe. Yeah. And really great. I think everyone should read it. Great revenge tale. Now we have, actually a couple more that aren't Brandon Sanderson. The Whipping Boy. This one is, this is a children's book. It's only about 80 pages. It's one of my very favorites. I read it ages ago. I read it with my daughter. This is the idea of a king. A prince, Prince Brat. And he has a whipping boy, meaning when he gets in trouble for something, you can't strike the king. So they bring in a peasant boy to give him some lashings. And so it's kind of about these two boys who it's kind of about understanding. Both of these boys have to go through this little path of understanding, which is quite a neat, short little book that I think is fantastic. It's really great. We Are Legion, We Are Bob. This is another one that is, I might just be missing something. The first 2 chapters, I was all in. So strong, but it just didn't kind of keep the tension for me or something. I just didn't care what was happening for the rest of it, and I was just waiting for it to be done. I don't think I'll be keep going on with it. I might reread this with different expectations in, 5 or 6 years or something like that. Now I have the rest of the Brandon Sanderson books. I found The Emperor's Soul kind of meh for me. I know a lot of people, this is one of their very favorites. It's one of the small ones. I thought it was okay. I might be missing something. I had just finished all these other books of his that I thought were just better. I thought it was entertaining, but it just didn't grab me. Dawn Shard, or is this is Edge Dancer. I read this after reading the second Stormlight book, and I really like this Lift character. I know she gets trashed for her terrible humor, and but I think she's kind of fun. And I know that's not the common thing with this character, but I really kind of like this book. And when I was reading the Stormlight Archive has these every few chapters or whatever, they have these little breaks where it goes to these other characters that aren't really part of the regular blocks of stuff that are happening. And Lift was a part of one of those. I think only in the second book, though. I might be mistaken. And I really liked her little side things, and I liked her own little whatever. I'm interested to see what happens, what's going to happen with her main part in the Stormlight Archives. Warbreaker. Thought that was enjoyable as well. Actually, I'll put it in WoW. I thought it was really great. I still don't think it was as good as Mistborn, but there are some things about this and some characters that are way up there for me that come from Warbreaker. Now, the Stormlight Archives, this is tricky for me because I did really enjoy them, but I'm not as blown away with the whole world of it quite. I think some of it was just kind of what was, other things at the time when I read them. I think I'm going to stop until maybe the 5th book is closer to being out, and then maybe restart them and go all the way through. These are dense books. There is a lot going on. I loved Way of Kings quite a bit. I think I'll put them in the top of my WoW section. Or actually, no, I'm going to put it top shelf because it really, really was fun. Really enjoyable. But again, somewhere between WoW and top shelf for me. For the magic system. The magic system is kind of what stopped me. I like a little bit more, and I mentioned this in my review, but I like a little bit more Frodo and Sam, and a little bit less Luke Skywalker and superheroes and flying around, being really kind of spectacle. I like a little bit more subdued stuff. So that's when, this stuff here from The Faithful and the Fallen, this is a gritty sword and shield, uh, small level duels, but there's tension in the duels rather than grand spectacle. Does that make sense? Really cool, but Words of Radiance, I'm going to put it in enjoyable because it kind of leaned on this spectacle, and it just didn't have the impact for me that I think it has had on a lot of people. And it's great that people love it. I'm going to give it, I'm going to go into it with some fresh eyes maybe in a year or two. But it just, yeah, that one I think I'll get some upset people from, might get some upset people on that one. But this is my list. What do you think? I'm sure there are things from the top on mine that you would have closer to the bottom, and vice versa. But what do you think? And what are you planning on reading this coming year? I have a whole bunch that I haven't quite decided. I know there are things that I would like to get to. I want to get to the rest of John Gwynn's books, but I kind of want to give some other authors a try. And I'm not doing weekly book reviews anymore, but I might put some on when I feel compelled to do so, because there's been some great ones, and I've already read a couple really cool ones this year. So I will see you in the next video, whenever that is. Consider subscribing if you would like. I'm not going to flood your feed. And consider giving a comment if you would like. Either way, thanks.